The sun was a warm hand on Kylo's back. He walked through the tall golden grass of the savannah. The earth beneath his bare feet was familiar, a friend he had known since birth. In the distance, a sound began to rise, carried on the gentle breeze. It was a chant, deep and rhythmic, a song of warriors from long ago. It spoke of strength and of spirit. It was a sound that vibrated not just in his ears but deep within his bones, calling to a part of him he did not yet understand. He was just a boy, small against the vastness of the land, but he felt a pull he could not ignore. He followed the sound, his steps sure and steady. He was not afraid. The chants grew louder, more powerful, as if the ancestors themselves were singing just for him. Mixed with the human voices was another sound, a roar that shook the very ground. It was the king of this land, the lion. The roar was not a threat. It was a promise. It was a declaration of power, a reminder of the wild heart that beat in everything, including him. Kylo lifted his chin, his small shoulders squared. He knew this path was his to walk, and he would not turn back. The air grew thick with anticipation. The world seemed to hold its breath. Every rustle of the leaves, every chirp of a distant bird, felt like a part of the song. The chants were a map, guiding him forward into the unknown. He thought of his mother, her gentle smile and the stories she told of their great family line. She said they had the spirit of the lion inside them, a courage that could never be broken. He clutched the small wooden charm she had given him, its surface worn smooth by his touch. He was her son, and he would be brave. He walked on, his senses alive. The smells of the earth, the dust kicked up by his feet, the warm scent of the sun-baked grass, it all filled him. This was his home. The chants and the roar were not strange to him, they were the heartbeat of his world. He felt a connection to everything around him, to the sky above and the ground below. He was not just a boy walking alone, he was a part of the great cycle of life, a young warrior walking toward his destiny, guided by the voices of his past and the king of the wild. As the sun dipped lower, casting long, dancing shadows across the plains, the air changed. It grew cold and heavy. The warrior chants faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. From the deepening twilight, strange shapes began to emerge. They were creatures of nightmare, with twisted limbs and eyes that glowed with a sickly green light. They slithered and skittered from behind thorny acacia trees, their forms unlike any animal Kylo had ever seen. They were shadows given life, and they moved toward him with a hungry, hissing sound that scraped against the quiet evening. The creatures circled him, their numbers growing. They were a tide of darkness, aiming to swallow the small boy whole. Their hisses grew louder, a chorus of malice meant to create fear, but Kylo stood his ground. He planted his feet firmly in the red dust, his small fists clenched at his sides. He remembered his mother's words, the stories of his ancestors who faced down great beasts and even greater fears. He would not run, he would not scream. He was the son of a proud line, and fear had no home in his heart tonight. One of the shadow creatures lunged, its claws like sharp razors. Kylo did not flinch. He held his ground, his gaze steady and defiant. He was a rock in the middle of a dark, rushing river. He felt the courage his mother spoke of rising within him like a fire. It burned away the coldness in the air, creating a small circle of warmth and light around him. He was not just a boy anymore. He was a guardian of his own spirit, a small warrior standing against the encroaching darkness, proving that bravery is not about size, but about the strength within. The shadows pressed closer, their foul breath washing over him. They were testing him, trying to find a crack in his resolve, but Kylo's courage was a shield. He stared back into their glowing green eyes, his own eyes reflecting the last light of the setting sun. He was a mountain, unmovable. He would not let them pass. He would not let them win. He was Kylo, and he was not afraid. This was his land, and he would protect his spirit with every ounce of strength he possessed. A silent promise to himself and to the ancestors who watched over him. Just as the creatures prepared for their final attack, a new sound split the air. It was a roar, but this one was different. It was not a distant echo, but a thunderous, earth-shaking blast that came from all around. The ground trembled. From the shadows, great golden forms emerged, moving with silent grace and immense power. It was a pride of lions. They moved like flowing gold, their muscles rippling under their tawny coats. Their eyes burned like amber flames in the twilight, fixed on the shadow creatures that had surrounded the boy. The king had answered the call. The lions did not hesitate. They fell upon the shadow creatures with a force of nature. Paws like hammers and teeth like daggers met the unnatural forms. The hissing of the creatures turned to shrieks of pain and terror as the pride tore through them. The lions were a storm of righteous fury, cleansing the land of the darkness that had invaded it. They fought with a coordinated elegance, a family protecting one of their own. Kalo watched, his heart pounding not with fear, but with awe at the magnificent display of strength and loyalty unfolding before him. The battle was swift and decisive. The shadow creatures dissolved into wisps of smoke and vanished back into the nothingness from which they came. The lions stood victorious, their powerful chests heaving as they surveyed the now peaceful clearing. One by one, they turned their gaze to Kalo. There was no menace in their eyes, only a calm, ancient wisdom. They had not saved him by chance. They had come for him. They had recognized the spirit within him, the same spirit that flowed through their own veins. He was one of them. The great alpha lion, the largest and most magnificent of them all, stepped forward. His mane was a dark, glorious crown around his noble face. He walked slowly toward Kalo, his heavy paws making no sound on the dusty ground. The boy did not move. He felt a deep, unexplainable connection to this powerful beast. He looked into the lion's golden eyes and saw something familiar, something that spoke to him without words. He saw protection, he saw family, he saw a strength that he was only just beginning to understand was also his own. As the alpha lion stood before Kalo, a strange light began to shimmer around its powerful form. The air grew warm and buzzed with a gentle energy. The lion's shape began to change, its golden fur receding, its strong limbs softening and reshaping. Kalo watched, his eyes wide with wonder, not fear. The magnificent beast was transforming, melting away like a dream. In its place stood a man. He was an old man, tall and proud, with skin weathered by the sun, and a long white beard that flowed like a lion's mane down his chest. The man wore simple robes, but he carried himself with the grace and authority of a king. He looked at Kalo, and a kind smile touched his lips. But it was his eyes that held the boy captive. They were the same golden amber eyes of the lion. They were ancient and wise, but they also held a deep, familiar warmth that tugged at Kalo's memory. Kalo felt as though he had looked into those eyes 1,000 times before, in a life he had almost forgotten. He searched his mind, trying to place the feeling, the powerful sense of connection. Then, the man spoke, his voice deep and resonant, like the rumble of a distant roar. "You have been brave, my son," he said. The words struck Kalo like a bolt of lightning. He remembered those eyes looking at him when he was very small. He remembered that voice telling him stories of the stars. It was his father. The father who had left their family many years ago, who his mother said had gone on a long journey to protect them. He had not abandoned them. He had become something more. Kalo looked from the man to the lions who sat watching them, and he finally understood. His father had not left. He had answered a deeper call. He was a guardian of this land, a protector of its spirit. And that same spirit, that same courage, lived in Kalo. The chants, the roar, the test of the shadows, it was all a part of his journey, a way to awaken the lion within him. He was not just a boy, he was the son of a lion, a child of the savannah, with a heritage of bravery running through his very blood. He had found his courage because it had been there all along.